Everyone, it's Christine. Welcome back to my channel and to this series and this next episode where we are back with Hayley, Family Constellations facilitator and psychic medium, where we are going to go deeper into getting unstuck and creating a new reality. For those of you that may not know Hayley or may have seen the previous episode where we talk more about all things family constellation, I'll link it somewhere up here. I'm going to introduce her and then we will get started. So Hayley is a family constellations facilitator and psychic medium who has been practicing constellation work for the past 16 years. She works both online and in person with people from all around the world and has hosted workshops both in the United States and in her home country of South Africa. Hayley draws on her own healing journey and psychic gifts to assist others on their own path to healing and personal transformation. I am really happy and delighted to be with Hayley today and to have her be a part of this episode. So welcome, Hayley. It's good to see you again.
Hello, Christine. It's good to be back.
So this was something Hayley and I talked about. Getting unstuck, creating new reality, what that all means, manifestation, setting goals, and shifting things in your life that you no longer want to entertain, that you no longer want to embody, or even things that you know you're ready to move on from. And there's a lot of talk about this in the spiritual community, broadly speaking, about how people can do this, especially with all of the energies and the times we're in right now that are lending to massive transformation, major identity shifts, major personal and professional shifts, but also changes around where are we going next. So with that, Hayley, I know you have such a diverse background and you have utilized so many different tools, modalities in your own healing, personal and professional journey. What do you feel like right now, getting stuck and creating a new reality? What do you feel are some of the big things that you've seen that have come up?
A lot of people are searching for their purpose, or they're saying, what is their destiny? Why are they here? What are they here to do? How are they going to better serve their life purpose and better serve humanity? A lot of people are questioning the work that they've been doing for years. They could be in a job that they love, a career that they love, but something just isn't gelling. And a lot of people are coming up with questions as to what is the meaning in what I'm doing, and trying to create meaning and purpose in what they're doing. And for some people, that's looking like a complete break away from everything they've known and everything they've done before. And for others, they're trying to just integrate some kind of meaning and purpose to what they're already doing and bringing that into the workplace or into their relationships and environments. But a lot of people are asking these questions and searching, what is the bigger picture?
That resonates so much, Hayley. Can I ask, when do you know that you feel stuck? Because I know you can determine when things aren't moving, right? On a more practical level, you'll know something's not changing. You feel like you're not making progress in life. You feel like something has stagnated. But what about when you feel it internally? What has that felt like for you? When do you know definitively, like, I'm stuck and I'm ready to change? I'm ready to create something new.
You shouldn't be asking me. I'll tell you why. Because I feel stuck regularly and I change regularly. So I don't stay stuck very long. So I will say that I don't sit with the feeling of stuckness very well, and I make changes all the time. But for most people, it starts to feel like their circumstances, their relationships, or their career are starting to feel a bit stifling or lacking joy or purpose. As I say, purpose, and feeling empty and feeling like there's more out there that they're missing. Sometimes it just feels like they've tried really hard and they've climbed the corporate ladder and they get to the top and they're like, but like, my life doesn't feel any better. I don't feel good. I feel bored. I feel lackluster. I feel there's no challenge. I feel like what I'm doing has no purpose. So that can feel very stifling, suffocating. I know for me, when I feel stuck, I start to get itchy feet. I start to look for challenges. I start to look for something else I can sink my teeth into, something else I can learn. Um, and I've changed careers many times. So I tend to go with that feeling. I tend to ride it like a wave, and I tend to look for something else and dive into something else. But not many people can do that. And circumstances might not allow them to do that, or financial, whatever it is. And then the feeling can be quite stifling, and feeling that you want to create change but not knowing how, or not knowing where to go, or not having any direction into creating change for themselves.
I think you summed up a lot of what so many of us have felt in different moments of our lives of navigating this journey, and sometimes thinking that what we are going to perhaps grow, what we are going to put a lot of energy towards or build, it doesn't turn out in the way that we want. And you brought up some themes, some somatic uh, feelings of
Yeah.
things that you felt in your own body when you knew that, okay, something has to change here. And I related to that so much because for me, when I find myself like hitting a wall or a dead end, or that feeling like I've been here before and I'm back again, almost like where you start and then you end up again, you're like, how the hell
Yeah.
did this happen? It
Cycle.
brings up
Yeah.
feelings of procrastination for myself and fear because I feel like, oh, this is telling me what's happening right now, what's working is not going to help me get to the next step of my journey. And that
Yes.
means I'm going to have to do something different. I'm going to have to break out of some type of comfort zone or my shell and do something in a way that's going to allow me to get out of this. And I felt like from what you talked about, it indicates some of these things because you said throughout your life you've had different careers and you've had different cycles of feeling stuck, but you don't allow yourself to stay stuck. So, what do you feel is the first step, or what has been your first step in getting unstuck?
Generally, I look at what it is that I'm feeling. I do a real internal check, and I look at what it is that's prompting that need for change. And so generally, it's uncovering some kind of layer, like an onion, within myself, to get to the core of what is prompting that need for change. And maybe it is, for instance, needing to get more creative. So then I will go, and once I've realized that it is a creative challenge I'm needing, then I will go and seek um, creative outlets, or I will take a course in something creative, or I'll add that to whatever it is I'm doing so that I can get more fulfillment. Because generally, what people don't understand is that we're made up of all these parts. We have our career, and we have our relationships, and we have our spiritual learning, and we have our holistic selves, and we have our physical selves. And if we pay attention to each aspect of ourselves, we can kind of hold them in check and balance, and realize when we're not focusing on one aspect at all. So often the case when I'm feeling stuck, or I'm feeling like I need more of a challenge, one of those areas is lacking inspiration, or one of those areas is lacking an outlet, and needs more input. And so I kind of you need to pay attention to that area within your life. And so if you realize that it's your relationships that are making you feel stuck, and then you need to gather tools for those relationships, or you need to uncover what it is in those relationship dynamics that's making you feel unsatisfied, and why is it making you feel unsatisfied, and do some inner in a dialogue and work out what it is that you need to work on and what you need to address in order for those relationships to blossom and bloom. And so it's the same if it's your career or if it's your relationship or if it's your physical health. So I tend to look at it as a holistic wheel, and you've got to keep each spoke turning at all times. And when some of that is out of balance, you need to address that by addressing what it needs, what you need in that part of your life.
What I'm hearing you say, first and foremost, is that everyone, or perhaps what you've experienced, is needing or having or integrating a level of awareness that entails you to actually take a step back and look at all the different aspects or parts of yourselves, like you mentioned. But what happens if all of those parts or pieces of ourselves are jumbled in a bag, like potpourri? Or if we're at a point where we feel clouded, or we're not finding the clarity that we're looking for with ourselves, by ourselves. Because I feel like there's a mole energy here where, okay, you look at one step and awareness is usually the first step, like what's going on that I'm not happy with. I'm
Sure.
feeling stuck. Where am I feeling stuck? How am I feeling? And you keep going down. But for folks that are not able to decipher this or identify this, or simply feel completely overwhelmed when many wheels of life are not even churning, they're dropped somewhere in another
Yeah.
reality. Those
Yeah.
suckers haven't been churning for who knows how long.
Gosh, yes. Yeah.
What could you tell people, or what maybe practical advice, tips, or anything that has helped you in your journey? What could you
Well,
offer
generally, obviously, I'm
folks?
going to say we chuck it in the field. We throw it into the constellation field, and we see what it is that the person needs to address the first and foremost. And often, like you say, if the person has no clear direction and no idea where to start, that's where we start. We start by following the energy and having a look in the field. Because I just find that the if we do that, we can see very clearly where the energy is sitting, or where the energy needs to be released, or where the energy is blocked. So that's that's always my solution. Um, but practical means, hmm, it's difficult because sometimes it could be trauma that's not allowing you to see things clearly, or it could be, you're in a bad situation, and it's clouding your judgment as well. So there's so many factors that can come into it about getting that awareness and about seeing things clearly. So um, I think, uh, I don't really have an answer, but first and foremost, I would put it in the field, and then we'd figure out what it is that people need to address first, um, and deal with first, and then we would take it step by step.
I like how you can integrate putting it in the field and being able to also maybe collapse it or help to break it down into smaller pieces to help people see, okay, well, let's get rid of all the static, the chaos, almost as if you're driving through a nebulous, foggy storm. Because if
Yeah,
you've ever driven in fog, it's a pain in the ass. You
yeah,
can't see anything, visibility is very low. Your headlights, yeah, they're not going to really
yeah.
help you. So having that container and having that space where someone can connect to you and say, this is what I'm going through. I really want to enact change or change my current circumstances, especially if it's in more than one life.
Yeah.
I feel like it gives people hope, but also some type of plan, something to start taking action on, because
Mhm. It often gives them a compass or a map with which to proceed. And even just having a direction with which to proceed can be helpful. So, for instance, I had someone contact me online once, feeling very stuck, had lots of decisions to make, wasn't sure about where she was going, what she was doing. She was, you know, she had lived a good deal of her life. She was in her 60s, but she just felt like wherever she went or whichever direction she went in, landed in a dead end for some reason. And so we just put it in the field, and we took a journey on the field, and we looked at some things, and we felt into some things. And at the end, she wrote a review, and she said, well, thanks to Hayley, I could see that I was getting in my own way. And sometimes, unfortunately, we often are getting in our own way. But it sometimes takes a clearer set of eyes to point that out to us, and to show us where we're getting stuck, how we're getting in our own way, how we're sabotaging our own progress or our own growth. And as you say, if you're in the comfort zone, it's very difficult to leave the comfort zone. It's very challenging for some people. As I say, I like to do it. I like to dive out of my comfort zone. It's thrilling for me. It's soothing for me, in fact, to dive out of my comfort zone. But it isn't for very many people, and understandably so. It can be very challenging and very frightening.
Thank you for diving deeper in that, because you mentioned a key element that I feel not everyone embodies is I like diving into the unknown or getting out of my comfort zone or doing new things. And sometimes that separates or perhaps creates a distinction of how and when we get unstuck. Because when we start taking even the smallest steps, no matter the magnitude, whenever we just
Hmm.
keep moving forward, things have a way of unraveling and things have a way of changing. So,
Yeah,
because you seem like this is something that naturally perhaps is innate for you, where you're like, okay, I'm ready, let's do this.
yeah.
What do you think has helped you embrace this? And what guidance can you offer others who are not yet there, where they're like, but it's scary out there. There's a lot of things coming up. I'm not really sure what direction. Like, how can I just take that first step? Whether that first step looks like reaching out to someone, maybe to
Yeah,
you to set up a session,
yeah.
or simply saying, okay, I just need to sit and face this.
I think the biggest impact, um, to change, like the biggest thing that can create the most momentum for change, is to take action. Even the smallest, most minute piece of action can set, as you say, can set a whole bunch of things in motion. Even just that, just it's like lighting a match. You just have to light the match, and then the chain will continue. But sometimes people are so stuck that they cannot even take that very first step, like you say, reaching out to someone, or even opening up to someone close to them to say, "Hey, I'm really battling." That, "Hey, I'm really battling," is a huge monumental step for some people, and that step can be the bravest step. But that step will put into place the energy that will allow change to start to make its way through your life. And then because change cannot happen without space. You have to create the space for change to occur. And every little action that you take toward your goal creates more space for that to happen. And so to create change in your life, it's really about, even if you just make the most minute little action and say, I'm ready for change. You've created that little, like almost like an oxygen bubble for change to occur. And then you take the next step, and then you take the next step, and you take the next step. But it really is sometimes just being brave and doing it anyway, even if you're feeling afraid.
You said something that I feel is key towards taking the action. Is first acknowledging I'm ready, because we have to make that decision, whether it's aloud to someone else for maybe validation or confirmation or even affirmation, or
Mm.
stay within ourselves and internalize that decision and say, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this. I can do this, and pump ourselves
Yeah,
up. And then the tiny action steps, which is simply allows us to move forward like a wheel because we're
yeah,
making progress on this carousel of life, right?
yeah,
And being brave, that's another thing where you just said that about sometimes you just have to do things in the midst of facing fears and being brave. And I feel like people don't really unpack that and talk about it because when you're doing anything new, I feel like there is perhaps a small amount of reservation or a small amount of fear. And I feel like the fear is not going to go away no
No,
matter what. And so sometimes it's getting comfortable with fear and the unknown first, which may help people to take action and say,
absolutely.
right? And so how do perhaps we can bring in, some of what you do and remind folks too of what the modalities you incorporate, family constellations, and how you help people do this. How can this help folks simply start getting to that point of, okay, I'm getting closer to making a decision. Maybe that's awareness
Yeah.
and acknowledgement, even acceptance,
Yeah.
and then saying, let's go. I'm ready to take action, whatever that looks like, whether it's a micro step or a big giant leap, like leaving their job or moving somewhere
Yeah.
around the world. How can you help folks do that in the work that you do?
Well, generally, it's funny because a lot of the work I've been doing recently with clients has involved facing their fear, and it was very beautiful. One client said that we were working with fear. I think we'd worked with fear, her fear. I think we'd worked with it in the field for about 2 or 3 sessions. And in the beginning, she wouldn't allow fear anywhere near her. It was just too frightening. The idea of fear being this big, scary, horrible, scary thing. And so every time we moved her fear a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And then the beautiful, beautiful realization when um, we moved it closer to her and he was allowed to occupy the same space as her. And then after the session, she sent me a message and she said, I feel like I need to picture fear. I need to be able to see it visually. So I'm gonna look for, because when we're working in the field and we're doing visualizations, we work with very visual. It's a very visual exercise. So if you see fear as a giant monster under your bed, that's how we're gonna work with fear, and we're gonna work with that monster. And so she pulled up a picture of what her fear looked like. And then she realized, as she looked at this picture, she was like, you know, that the more I look at this fear, I realize that fear is just trying to protect me. And I said, yes, exactly. So when we can make friends with our fear, we can conquer our fear because we can allow fear to occupy that same space. And like you said, fear doesn't go away, particularly even for me who isn't change averse. The bigger the risk, the bigger the fear. It's always going to be there. It's just making friends with it and also realizing what role fear has and how it either can protect you or hinder you. So in the field when I'm working with someone, we, as I say, we bring this in a very visual way, and how it appears to you. We work with that image, and we work with a lot of imagery, so that it can make it real and it can make it 3D, and so you can kind of deal with it, because these are very intangible concepts. Like, what is my fear? I know what it feels like in my chest. I know what it feels like somatically, but what does it actually look like in my head? And then when you can put a name and a face to it, almost, it makes it that much more concrete and that much more real. And then you're able to kind of, examine it and look at it in a whole new way.
I love what you said about fear and almost like you are extending an olive branch and saying, let's be friends. Let's come join
Yeah,
me on the sofa. Let's talk it through. Let's see what's
yeah,
going on because I feel like that's maybe it's like a marker, a particular area that many folks skip over. A lot of times I hear the same shit. Just get over your fear or just go and
yeah.
embrace your fear. And I'm like, well, there are legitimate reasons where very real or perhaps imagined, but people feel they're like,
Exactly. There's legitimate reasons for fear being there. He didn't just arrive.
exactly. And that
Yeah,
prevents people in many ways from
yeah,
either leaving their house or reaching out to someone, maybe due to other types of conditions, maybe generalized anxiety disorder. But beyond
absolutely.
that, because I know you guys do not diagnose, and that's a separate issue. I like what you said about fear, and I'm bringing that up because I think it can offer folks whether they work independently or they work with you, to start getting reacquainted with all the things that come up.
Mm.
What happens versus what doesn't happen, which is interesting because a lot of the fears that we tend to have, they feel very real, but many of them are imagined up here. And we
Yeah.
create these stories, and like you said, what does it look like? And it makes me think of cartoons. When you have bad dreams, you see them visualize and manifest in certain dark clouds or whatever they do. So I think that's a key step towards bridging. And I want to pivot this conversation because we spent quite a good chunk on just the fact of knowing you're stuck, being in that stuckness.
Yeah.
When you're ready to cross that bridge and you go across it and you say, I'm ready for creation, I'm ready for changes, I'm ready to see something different that I haven't experienced before.
Yeah.
How does constellation work help with this versus maybe the manifestation? I'll say this broadly, stuffed in that community because they tout law of attraction, law of assumption, and things of you can just attract this in your life. You can just manifest this easily. And I bring this up. It's not a judgment call on those folks, but I feel like this is where things can get gray. Things can go into, they can devolve really easily into shaming yourself and saying, it's not working for me. What the hell is going on? Or I'm not being enough at a certain frequency. I'm not being in the mode of love or being high frequency, high vibing. What's going on? How does your approach differ in this? And if you want to, what is your view on this?
Well, look, I do believe that we are creators, and we do create our reality, but I think it's somewhat different from what's touted out there in the mainstream, and certainly with books like The Secret, for example. It was just one law of attraction that was kind of blown up disproportionately, I think, and also just that a lot of people don't really understand how that kind of manifestation really works. Because what we manifest isn't always understandable. It isn't always clear cut. Like, oh well, I asked for the Porsche, I should get the Porsche. Because sometimes it's not going to manifest the way that you think it is. I want to digress a little bit, actually, to just explain that concept a bit more. In that, let's say you're wanting to manifest or learn about or have more of patience, for example. Okay. So people will say, okay, you need to manifest patience. You need to just pray and you will have patience. But it doesn't work that way. The universal laws, the way it actually works, is if you're asking for patience, you will be given many, 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 many opportunities to exhibit patience and to learn patience. So you will be tested repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly until you can say, wow, those things really taught me all about being patient. Now I'm patient because it was tested again and again and again and again and again. And finally I realized that I had to be patient in order for these things to happen. So things don't necessarily appear as you think they do. They don't necessarily appear like a magic Aladdin's carpet. They appear in different ways. They appear in ways that are appropriate for you and appropriate for your learning and appropriate for your journey. So that is why people can say, well, I asked for the Porsche. Why haven't I got the Porsche? Well, because it's not appropriate for you right now, because you're not in the space that's ready for the Porsche, or you still have a lot to learn, or there's some other beliefs that are holding you back, because then there's the whole belief system. And what is it that you actually believe about the Porsche? Or what does the Porsche represent for you? Because maybe it's more about what the Porsche represents for you that you want and not the object itself. So it's very complex how things can manifest. But I certainly do believe that we manifest our own reality. But half the time we don't even know what we're doing. And half the time we don't even know when the stuff shows up because we don't recognize it. Because we're being told it's like a catalog. You just order and it appears. Well, it doesn't appear exactly as you order it. So like I say, if you want to learn about patience, your patience will be tested. If you want to learn about forgiveness, you're going to have a shitload to forgive. So those are how you get those things. I kind of like earning it, I guess, but also it comes into play where your beliefs and things come into play, because obviously if you're asking for something that is fundamentally at odds with what you truly believe, it's no matter what you do, it's not going to appear.
I feel like you just threw confetti at me and you're like, catch it. You said so many good points around this, like ordering from a catalog. And for me, it's akin, you can call it manifestation. You're essentially creating a goal or a desire that you would
Yeah,
like to see in some shape, way, or form in your life.
yeah,
And you bring up a lot of focus around clarity, because
mm,
when we don't know what we want, like you mentioned with the Porsche, is it really the Porsche that you want, or is it something that embodies that Porsche that you think that
it's
itself
like
is enough?
validation, or it's accreditation, or it's whatever it is that the Porsche represents. It might not be actually the Porsche that you want.
Exactly. So clarity is coming up for me here, how important it is when you are shifting right now and in the midst of crossing that bridge. So you're in that process. Perhaps it could be a liminal space, a void, but also an in between, and also the process of transformation, kind of like being in the eye of a tornado or a twister or
Hmm, hmm.
some kind of storm. You don't know yet the result, but you know you're in that moment of shifting, of changing. And
Yeah.
so clarity, it seems like that's an important key in the creation of a new reality, because if you just say, I want to be happy, well, what the hell does that look like? Because what
Yeah,
happiness means for you versus for me is going to be probably very different.
absolutely.
And I really like how you brought that into attention, because I think this is something that's also missing. Folks aren't getting very clear
Mm,
or thinking deeply about, what does this mean for me? What do I want? What does this look like?
mhm,
Right? Because wealth
mhm.
for me is probably going to be something different than wealth for someone who loves maybe Chanel and fashion designers and loves spending money on that.
For
Their
sure.
definitions of wealth, and it may not even be money. So really,
Yeah.
really, I think important point that you highlight, and I appreciate that. And I also want to ask you too, because you brought up an example of patience. And I'm like, this is
Mhm.
perfect because I wanted to go somewhere with this. A lot of times when we are in the process of creating a new reality,
Yeah.
as humans, I think many of us want it now. We're like, okay,
Yeah.
I realize I don't want what I'm experiencing. So by Friday, I want the new to come. So you're dealing with elements of patience, of learning
Mhm.
when to detach, when to release, but also divine timing. So what are your thoughts around this? And does the work that you do, does it take
Mhm.
into account some of this? Because I don't feel like things always happen in the way or that we want, but in our timelines.
Yeah, it's gonna happen according to what you're ready for, primarily. So you might think that you're ready for X, Y, and Z. You might think that you're ready for this promotion, or you're ready for this Porsche. But what you're not understanding is that you haven't taken all the steps to be there yet. And so you're projecting that you want there, and that's great to have a goal. But um, if you're ready for it, it'll happen quickly. If you're in flow, it'll happen quickly. It will just automatically gather momentum, and there it is. But if you're not ready for it, you're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to put in the steps so that you can be at a place where you are ready for that thing. The same as a promotion. You wouldn't come to a job on your first day as the tea girl and expect to be the CEO the very next day. But a lot of these things that people are wanting or asking for, it's like that's kind of the analogy. It's like, well, I'm not prepared to put in the work, but I want the title, or I want the wealth, or I want the result. I just want the result, and I don't really want to have to put in the work. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Um, constellation work in particular doesn't really work like that. So you know, you you can know where you want to head, but you are going to have to put in the emotional work. You're going to have to do the healing. You're going to have to address your fears. You're going to have to change some beliefs. You're going to have to see and get realistic about where you are and where you're going. And sometimes it's frustrating because you want to go faster than you think it. You think it should go faster than what it is. And yeah, I guess that's where you say divine timing, and you say, well, things all happen in their own time, because sometimes we think we're completely ready and we think that it should happen now, but circumstances delay it, or it doesn't happen at all. And then when you look back and you look at the whole scheme of things and you think, wow, I'm really grateful that didn't happen then, because I wouldn't have been ready for it. Or I'm really grateful that that didn't happen then, because it led me down a different path, and I never would have discovered that path if that thing that I wanted happened. So I think you've got to be very careful about getting stuck on the result and saying, I want this specific result. And they tell you when you're doing manifestation, some, I think there's different classes of it, or different theories to it, where some will say, imagine it in specific detail. Imagine the green of the roof if you want this house, and the green of the roof, and the color of the walls. And I tend to say no, because you don't know necessarily if that specific house is the house for you, but you can connect with it on a level and go, I want the house that feels like this. Then it's going to materialize, because it's working on feeling, and a lot of manifestation has to do with feeling things. And so if you can match the feeling, then it will show up, and it'll show up in the correct form. It might not show up as that specific house you saw on the real estate agent's listing, but it will be the perfect house for you to fit that feeling, that next version of you that needs that house. It won't necessarily be that green roof, that specific wall. It might be a completely different house, but it matches the feeling that you felt when you looked at that house. And so feeling also generates electricity, generates energy. And we live in a world that is driven by energy. And constellation work is all about looking at the energetics of stuff. And so if you want to work with the energy, you work with the feeling. So you got to feel stuff to make it happen. You got to feel stuff to heal. You got to feel stuff to resonate at a certain frequency or vibration.
Hayley, thank you so much for diving so deep into that and almost breaking apart the different aspects that we don't always see when this is discussed, when creating your new reality, manifestation, essentially creating goals and wanting to shift your life in some way. Mm-hmm. And you brought up, again, so many nuggets here where I'm like, yes, yes. Like feeling. Feeling is important in manifesting, because you said it generates energy. I feel like it's almost like an electrical vibe. It just sends it and emits a message, a ding, kind of like a cell phone tower. I always think of the universe as a giant ass cell phone tower. Yeah. We're the little cell phone. We're dinging back and forth to the universe here. And you mentioned how important that is. And I feel like that's also another problem as we get unstuck for many reasons. And this is going to be probably unique to every person. Everyone is in different parts of their own healing journey. Feeling is something a lot of folks have difficulty with, yes, for many reasons beyond the scope of this video. And getting into their body and simply allowing themselves to feel what comes up and naming and identifying that, sure, I think is key. And that's something you mentioned is done in family constellations. So to me, when you said that, I'm like, well, damn, family constellations is an amazing precursor for kind of cleaning your shit out, for tapping more into who you are, for connecting more to that frequency, and for allowing that ding, our little cell phone ding, to the universe to become stronger, perhaps to emit with greater clarity, kind of like a radio, right? Back in the day when we would tune and find our station, we hear, oh my gosh, our favorite song is playing. and then you're trying to find it and you can't. And it's because, something is off with the frequency, whether it's your location, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe it's the antenna. And it sounds like from what you were saying, it's similar in this way with the feeling. If you are detached in some way and you're not connecting to those emotions, especially with something it is that you want to bring into your reality or change, goals, manifestation, then it seems like there may be potential blocks. There could be slowing down, or something could happen where things may not be shifting because of some type of connection. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Yeah, because I didn't even consider, and so many times we think, okay, well, let's go towards traditional paths of maybe psychotherapy. And I'm not knocking psychotherapy down
Sure.
at all. I'm just saying this is usually a mode for many people, traditional therapy, counseling, to try to deal with these. And you don't always connect the dots because I find that people separate, okay, I have goals, I'm going to achieve them. And then on the other side, I've got healing to do. I haven't really dealt with my emotions. And then
Yeah.
they meet somewhere. So it seems like Family Constellations offers a space for you to drop down into perhaps a different version of who you are, or trying to embody something that maybe you have tried to ignore, not feel, which
Yeah.
again, it doesn't seem like it's related to the creation of a new reality, but it seems like, excuse me, it seems like it's a prerequisite. What are your thoughts on that? Is this something you feel people, this helps, like Family Constellations helps become more attuned to your emotional body?
100%. It helps people to become more aware. Everything that you've mentioned about manifesting and creating change, and it gives you clarity. It helps you become more aware. It helps you become more in tune with what it is you're trying to create, what it is that's holding you back, what it is that's keeping you stuck. Because Family Constellations works in almost like an altered state,
Mhm.
like a meditative state almost. And we call it the morphogenic field. It's the energetic field within which we all exist. And we're all exactly like you say, like the cell phones, pinging, pinging, pinging. We call it collective consciousness, where we're all connected. So that would be the network that all these cell phones are connected through. And we're all connected to the same network. They aren't different networks. So we can all be pinging at different frequencies and different providers, for example, but we're all on the same network. So when we tap into that, it can be really powerful, because we got to first tap into it for ourselves and check, like, what are we emitting? What frequencies are we emitting? Because when we become aware of that, and we become aware of what it is that our sort of emotional charge, vibration, frequency is, then we become more conscious about emitting that in a more conscious and purposeful way. And so, back to what I was saying about working in a different space. When you work in family constellation space, you're working in a slightly elevated energetic state, and the only way forward is through feeling. So you can't really logic your way around a process in family constellation, because it doesn't work. The family constellation falls flat. You don't get a result. You don't get feedback from the field, because it's working off of energy. So the more energy you provide with your session, the more involved and the more you can feel into your session, the more you're going to get out of it. And by doing that, you become more in tune with your feeling frequency, if you like. And when you become more aware of your feeling frequency, you can heal the parts of you that you need healing. You can adjust and fine tune the parts of you that need attunement. And you can really just get clear about what it is that you want, and focus that. And then in the field, you can take things away that are blocking you. You can reset belief systems that aren't working for you. You can look at it, if it's past life stuff that's holding you back, or if it's ancestral stuff that's influencing you. So it encompasses everything, and it encompasses the whole picture. And it's all done through the heart, the center of the heart, and feeling through this process. So I do get people that are very detached, who say that they can't feel, or or feeling is difficult for them, or it's always been unsafe to feel. And with family constellation work, we slowly work with that. And like I said about small changes, incrementally, we can get them into a space where they are humming at their own kind of frequency. They can feel enough that to inform their process, and that is really rejuvenating and really helpful for people.
As you were talking and you were mentioning all of how getting connected to this can really help you attune essentially to a higher frequency
Yeah.
that can connect to obviously your goals, your manifestations, etc. I kept seeing a mole, a little animal that can't see, and they keep digging through the hole. And what's funny is many of them, not all, they have naked moles, hairless moles. And so what I heard you say really epitomized the feeling of stripping away
Mm.
layers of ourselves, and
Yeah.
it's almost like creating a buoyancy where naturally we become more attuned to things that we weren't before.
Yeah.
Kind of like the mole. The mole uses his scent, his or her scent, I should say, to guide himself. So in many ways, we're using our own personal scent. It
Yeah.
sounds like during this process, which is fascinating. It's amazing how things can shift by tapping into things we maybe didn't want to before, or where we had some type of fear. And you mentioned a lot about it earlier. So I want to end this because I know we've dived deep into different elements of getting unstuck, in particular, crossing this bridge towards creating the new. I want to ask a final question around what can people do during this waiting time? Say you're metaphorically about to cross the bridge, and the end of the bridge and stepping off of it would represent your new reality, your goals are here. What happens if you are not yet off that bridge? You're still waiting, in other words. You're in a waiting room. You're like,
Mm.
okay, I'm doing this work. What guidance can you provide for folks that maybe are still wrestling with impatience, or they're wondering, is it working or what's happening, especially after leaving a session with you, or even if they're doing it on their own?
Mm. Patience. We're back to patience.
I think the question I asked almost felt tautological because it just went back to the answer.
Yeah, we come right back to patience.
Maybe a better way is to ask is how can folks practice this?
Practice?
Yes, if patience is the key here while you're
Yeah.
still waiting to
Okay.
shift, maybe you're in the process of integrating, what would that look like? Or what has that looked like for you or for the work you've done with clients?
Mm. I think a lot of the time, we get impatient with changes, or we get impatient that things aren't moving fast enough. And I'll be honest, the best anecdote to feeling impatient and to feeling like you're waiting, and like you say, in the waiting room, is to distract yourself, and distract yourself with stuff that's in your space to do. So is to stay really present with what you have. So I always say, like, work with what you have. So for example, you you're not really sure what to do that day. Let's say you work for yourself, or you are waiting in between jobs, for example, and you're really waiting to hear about a job interview. And so the days are a little bit empty, and you don't know what to do with yourself, and you're anxiously waiting to hear on this job. Then I would say to you, work with what you have, work with what is in front of you. And it's kind of like that. I think it's a tarot card where it's called chop wood, and it basically means chop wood and draw water. It means get stuck with the day-to-day tasks that are in front of you to do. So if it's making your bed and washing the dishes, and that's all you've got to do today while you wait to hear about this job, then that's what you do. You work with what is in front of you, and you distract yourself in a way by being really present. You go outside, you take a walk, You be really, really present with that walk, and you look at the flowers, and you just absorb everything in nature, and you absorb the sky and the sunlight and the way that it falls. And pretty soon you'll be in a different altered state of your own while you're waiting. And so that waiting becomes productive, and so you're being present, even if it's just 5 minutes of just being really present, and not worried about this thing that's coming down the line, or not worried about this thing that hasn't happened yet. You just stay present from moment to moment. You can practice the art of being present and working with what you have. Drawing wood and what cutting wood and drawing water, um, as they say, because it just keeps that loop going as you wait for things to materialize in the background, and you continue working, and I find that really just helps you to stay on track. It's like what they tell people who are really depressed, and they say, just get up and make your bed. If you do nothing else today, just make your bed. It's kind of like that when you're in that waiting phase, where if you've got nothing else to do, then just do what's in front of you to do, and take care of those around you. Stay in your body, stay present, and keep on visualizing where you want to be. Keep that goal in mind the whole time, and align your activities with achieving that. So, for example, don't be counterintuitive. Like, don't do the opposite of what you want to do. For example, like if your goal is to be the fittest person on earth, and you're waiting for that to happen, for example, and it's not happening enough, it's not happening fast enough, and so you're going to gym every day, you're doing these workouts, and you're not getting the body that you're wanting fast enough, and then you think, well, okay, well, screw it, it's not happening, I'm just going to go to bed for the next week. That's not going to help your goal move faster. So just keep working at the goal, because then you're not stepping backwards, you're not losing time, you're not losing anything. So always just keep that goal in mind and work towards that goal, and whatever that is, and don't go and do something that is going to deter you from that goal. Keep that in mind, and align your activities, and align your focus, and align your intentions towards achieving that goal. And then it literally has to happen. Eventually it has to happen, even if it takes longer than what you hoped it would.
I think you gave such a robust answer here. When you're waiting for something to develop, when you're waiting for that seed to bloom into that plant, the flower, or that big garden where you provide for your entire community, whatever it is, when you are waiting, I feel like that's the point of releasing control. And you infer that by refocusing your energy and using that energy, instead of focusing on something that you really can't control, to do things that you probably can. Like you mentioned, really wonderful examples. And I think this is a great way to end this, because this is the point where many folks are at when you have put in that work and you're waiting for to see the blossom, the results, to see what it is that you want come up. This is the part where some folks can give up too easily.
Yeah.
They can easily hunker down, slide back into negative modes of thinking. So thank you for going deeper into that, and for this entire conversation, because right now in this season, I feel like a lot of new chapters, new starts are happening for a lot of people everywhere, and especially with people that I've talked to, whether they're neighbors, clients, friends. There's something new that's happening and that folks are wanting to embark on. And all of this is, I feel, a great way to figure out, what do I need more support with? What do I maybe need to shift or tap into? And more importantly, to consult or potentially inquire and learn about new modalities. And I love how you have shown and told all of us how Family Constellations has been very helpful for you, for your clients, and what you've seen, because I feel like this is just something else we can also use to help us become more acquainted with ourselves, the soma, and our emotions.
For sure.
Any final words you'd like to leave us with, Hayley, before we depart?
Yeah, be patient.
We need a bumper sticker now. I feel like this should be on the thumbnail of this video. Patience, or what is it? Patience is a virtue.
Oh, yeah.
Or perhaps it's just teaching us how things unravel in their own time, and that
Yeah,
sometimes the good things come to those who wait, or that saying,
yeah.
allowing things to cook because you don't want to take something out of the oven prematurely because it may not be what you anticipate.
Yeah, and almost like I wanna say, practice productive waiting, if you wanna put it that way.
I love that, Haley. Thank you so much for being here with us and for sharing all of your nuggets, your wisdom, your life experiences, and more importantly, what it is that you do as a family constellation facilitator and psychic medium. I'm going to drop Haley's details and ways you can contact her and connect with her should you like to proceed further in the description box below and in the comments. If you guys have any questions for Haley, you can contact her or feel free to drop them in the chat area, description box, no, comment area. I was getting lost there. Otherwise, thank you for being here. Take a look at this video with Haley if you'd like to learn more about family constellations. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. And thank you so much, Haley, for being here again.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.